Now, nothing's been decided as of yet. But at the rate that things are going, Yoshizawa-san's honor status could possibly be revoked.
Before we get into the video, I do just want to remind you that I stream most days over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RoslinGaming. You can find a link in the video description. I've also done quite a few other videos covering Persona 5 Royal, so if you're interested, please check out the playlist link that's also linked in the video description. So not too long ago, I played the Western version of Persona 5 Royal, and this was actually my first time playing through any version of Persona 5 in English. I went into it expecting to cringe at the mispronunciation of names and places, and to not really enjoy the English voice acting. Overall though, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the English voice acting. While not up to the same level as the Japanese cast, it was, outside of a few instances that were most likely due to bad voice direction, pretty good. What I did not expect, however, was for the quality of the translation to be as poor as it was. The game is littered with mistranslations, suboptimal translations, grammatical errors, and more. In most cases, these are harmless, but in others, they can change the perception of a character within the greater narrative. Maybe as you were playing through the game, you came across dialogue that felt off. You couldn't put your finger on what made you feel that way, but since the information was being relayed to you in a manner that you could understand, you didn't think much of it and continued on. Or maybe you caught one of the glaring mistakes, but just laughed it off and continued because overall, it was good enough. And that's the problem. The translation is just good enough. Because the vast majority of people who will play the Western version of Persona 5 Royal don't speak Japanese and haven't played the original, Atlas West is able to get away with something that is just good enough. Inconsistencies will be overlooked, strange word choice will be chalked up to being a Japanese game, and mistranslations will just go unnoticed. Persona 5 Royal's translation isn't a fan translation or an anime fan sub. It's a professional translation by a reputable company, and as such, the consumer should be assured a professional quality translation. In order to better illustrate what I'm talking about, I've picked out a number of examples that I feel are a good representation of the various types of translation mistakes present throughout Persona 5 Royal. However, before we get any further, I should probably let you know that I do speak Japanese. In fact, I actually used to live in Japan, where I worked as a translation coordinator, translator, and editor on a number of projects both small and large, as well as for the Japanese government. So while my Japanese isn't necessarily perfect, and I do make mistakes, at the very least I do kind of know what I'm talking about. For these first couple of examples, I want to take a look at mistranslations that no doubt caused some confusion or misunderstanding of how something within the game works. If you've gone through the Thieves' Den Awards and looked at the World Class Launderer Award and wondered why you hadn't received this one even though you've washed 10 pieces of sooty equipment, this is in part due to a mistranslation. In English it reads, "Washed 10 pieces of sooty equipment at the laundromat in Yongenjaya." Seems simple enough. Wash 10 pieces of sooty equipment and you're good. In Japanese, however, this is a little bit different. Yongenjaya no coin laundry de susuketa bogu o ryuike 10 shurei jibun de aratta. The two important points here have been highlighted. The first point lets you know that 10 different types of sooty equipment must be washed, not 10 pieces. Whereas the second point states that you must do it yourself. These 2 points tell the player 2 things that are not present in the English translation. That simply washing 10 pieces of sooty equipment isn't enough, instead it must be 10 different kinds of sooty equipment. And that you must do this yourself and not utilize Kawakami's Confidant perk. So a better translation would be, washed 10 different types of sooty equipment at the laundromat in Yongenjaya by yourself. A second example of a mistranslation that could cause a misunderstanding is with the persona Futsunushi's persona trait, Will of the Sword. In English, this reads, triples the effect of charge/concentrate. For those unaware, charge and concentrate multiply the damage of your next physical or magic attack by 2.5 respectively. Going by the English text for Will of the Sword, this effect would now be 7.5, which is grossly different than what it actually is. In Japanese, this reads, charge to concentrate no kouka ga 3 倍相当になる. Now I can kind of understand this one, if the translator used Google Translate, as this part is translated as the effect is tripled by Google Translate. What it is actually saying is that the effects of charge and concentrate are now a 3 times multiplier. A better translation would perhaps be charge/concentrate now triple the damage of next attack, or something along those lines. But the best solution would actually be to also change the descriptions of charge and concentrate themselves to more accurately state what they do. If the descriptions read increases the next physical/magical attack by 150%, then you could translate Will of the Sword to read something like, charge concentrates increase is now 200%. Now, an interesting thing about Will of the Sword on both versions is that it also provides you with the concentrate effect at the start of battle. However, neither version of the game says this, so it's probably a bug. For this third example, I want to point out a mistranslation that honestly, I'm not even sure how this passed as okay. The line in question comes from a dialogue choice with Kasumi on June 6th. It's raining outside and Joker finds her by herself at the school entrance, where she tells him that she didn't bring an umbrella. You are then presented two dialogue options to choose from, Haiteku and Issho ni kairu. The second option, Issho ni kairu, is fine. There's nothing wrong with its translation. The first option, however, oh boy. For some reason, the translator decided to translate Haiteku, which in the context of this situation means, do you want to share, to, you want a piece of this? Like, what? How? Why? It makes no sense. Is Joker all of a sudden trying to pick a fight with her? Or is he literally saying he will tear a piece of his umbrella off and give it to her? No, he's being considerate. Want to share? Do you want to share? Do you want to share my umbrella? Any three of these would have been perfectly acceptable. Moving on, we have another mistranslation dealing with a dialogue choice the player is given when interacting with Kasumi. However, this one is a little bit more nuanced. This happens during Kasumi's rank 2 to 3 confidant event, where she's telling you about something other than gymnastics that she's interested in. She says that she has figured something out and that it's this, at which point 3 dialogue options appear, giving Joker a chance to respond. The first option, making bento, is the one I want to talk about. I think I can see where the translator got this. If you plug the Japanese line, which is bento tsukuri, into Google Translate, you get making lunch after all. The main issue here is a matter of tense. In Japanese, it is pretty common for tense, whether or not something is singular or plural, to be derived from the context of the situation. With the situation here, Kasumi is implying that in addition to gymnastics, she often cooks. This means that contextually, she doesn't just make one bento, but instead does so regularly. This means that at the very least, an S is needed at the end of bento. Though it could be argued that since this is a Japanese word, it could reasonably be used for both singular and plural. And admittedly, making bentos does sound a little bit strange. But it's because of this that I think going the simpler and less confusing route would provide a better translation, in which case just using cooking would be the best option. You do lose out on the opportunity to throw in a Japanese word, but the trade-off is a translation that sounds far more natural. How about a scene in which a line that was present in the Japanese just simply wasn't translated at all? On March 14th, during the White Day event, if you bring Sumire, you will get the following lines. You're going to spoil me, you know? I don't know if I even deserve to be this happy. There's nothing wrong with the way these lines are translated, except for the fact that there is an entire line that is present in the Japanese script that they neglected to include in English. Just before I don't know if I even deserve to be this happy is this line, Senpai no koto suki ni natte iku bakari de, which translates to, I just keep falling more and more in love with you. So yeah, in addition to mistranslations, there are also entire lines that were just not translated for the English script. How about we take a break and run through a few quick-fire examples? I won't really be going over these, but I still wanted to point them out, and I think you'll find them amusing. Like how Kasumi tells you she has a younger sister, who died in an accident, only then to tell you later that the sister she mentioned she didn't actually remember. Or maybe how the gymnast who transferred to Shujin Academy on a gymnastics scholarship somehow became your apprentice to improve her gymnastics. Oh, and there is also the fact that it's apparently possible to become currently deceased. This next example clearly illustrates just how little attention the translators paid to what was actually happening on screen within the game for the given lines they were translating. There is a scene that happens on October 3rd in which Kasumi is called to the guidance office with Maruki and another teacher. It starts with her asking the teacher if they could repeat what they just said, saying, "What? Excuse me, but could you please repeat that?" Following this, the teacher says, "Now, nothing's been decided as of yet, but at the rate things are going, Yoshizawa-san's honor status could possibly be revoked," speaking as if he's replying to someone other than Kasumi, even though she is literally sitting right in front of him and just asked him the question. He even then continues, "Something so serious should, of course, be brought to the attention of both her parents and yourself." At least here he kind of directs it towards her, I guess. The previous line should have been, "But at the rate things are going, your honor status could possibly be revoked," with the line following that one replacing her parents with your parents. In Japanese, the teacher clearly directs his response to Kasumi as he continues to face her and say, "Mada kimatta wake janai. Tada, kono mama nara tokutai o torikesu kamo tte hanashi da." Because he remained focused towards Kasumi as he answers, it is clearly implied his response is directed at her. This is further supported by his following line, "Kanousei ga aru koto to wa kimi to oyago-san ni mo saenai to ikan daro," where this part means you and your parents. And this is yet again further supported once Maruki jumps into the conversation and the teacher finally looks away from Kasumi. I said this example showed how little the translators paid attention to the scenes, but I actually wonder if they even double checked at all, as this one was so clearly wrong. On March 3rd, there was another brilliant mistranslation in which the translator not only mistakes the subject of a conversation, but also inserts their own dialogue. During the scene in which everyone is letting each other know about what their plans are moving forward, the conversation shifts a little when Ryuji brings up Maruki saying, "There's still no way I'm accepting Doc's reality, but if it weren't for going through that, I don't know if I would have felt this way now," he continues. "It's like following through with what I want to do in life. I guess I learned how to really believe in my future." With these lines from Ryuji, it is clear that the conversation has shifted to Maruki and how, despite all that happened, it is thanks to everything that happened that they are able to move on now. On then jumps in mentioning how it would be the same for Sumire, that she also learned the same thing as them. Up until now, there is nothing wrong with the translation. Yusuke then says his lines. Indeed, while her viewpoint may differ from the Phantom Thief's beliefs, there's still much we can learn from her. According to this English script, Yusuke is saying that the conversation has now shifted from talking about what they can learn from Maruki to talking about what they can learn from Sumire. If we take a look at what Yusuke says in Japanese, we get a different picture. Komakai shuchou wa chigai domo manabu koto wa oi. Essentially what he's saying here is that even though they had differing opinions, there is still much to be learned from each other. There is no mention of Sumire or the Phantom Thieves to indicate a change in subject because he is supposed to be responding to Ryuji's initial comments regarding Maruki. If I were to alter the English script to accurately reflect what was actually being said in Japanese, Yusuke should have said this. Indeed, while our viewpoints and beliefs may differ, there is still much that we can learn from him. I am assuming what happened here is that the translator was unaware of the overall story regarding Maruki and the Phantom Thieves, which led them to assuming Yusuke was talking about Sumire as she was mentioned just prior to his dialogue. Still, this should have been picked up by the editor at the very least. So I think I'm going to stop here. There are many more examples I could use, but I don't want this video to end up being any longer than it already is. Hopefully with these examples you have gained an understanding as to where the translation for Persona 5 Royal went wrong. As I said earlier, the translation is good enough, but I'm not sure good enough should be acceptable for a professional piece of work, but that's just me. Either way, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions, you can find me on my Twitch channel or on my Discord, both of which are linked in the video description. Until next time, take care.